What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for a match review stream for you guys. Brentford 2, Tottenham 2, and our first sightings of a competitive game of ANGE ball. And you know, there were good things, there were bad things. I think there was a few teething problems maybe going into our first game, maybe some fitness issues as well, which we can talk about. But today, you are very lucky today because we're starting now. We're doing the match review, player ratings, Twitter reacts, and 5 takeaways all on this stream for you guys today. So in terms of Twitter reacts, if you do want us to react to anything, please do tag us on Twitter and we'll get that up for you and react to anything.
I've posted a link to the chat.
So there you go. Our Twitter handle is posted live on the top of the live chat. So if you do want to tag us in anything, we will react to it when we get round to Twitter reacts. But let's start off with the match review from yesterday. And I think that you can definitely take a lot of positives from what happened on that pitch yesterday. There were a couple of negatives and like some teething problems, like I said before. But I guess let's start from the beginning. I mean, it was an absolute... the game started off at 100 million miles per hour, didn't it? I mean, it was an eventful first half, to say the least. And from the first minute...
Even before kickoff, didn't have any water.
I know. I was there in the stadium, and when I went to the toilet, I realised there was no water in the taps. There was still no water in the taps. I was like, oh, this is strange. And then the kickoff was delayed, but I didn't put the 2 and 2 together to realise that's why the delay was. But look, I think the game started off... I think Brentford maybe started off more on the front foot in the early stages. And Romero gets that knock to the head really early on, straight away. What was it, in the 12th minute, that free kick comes in from James Maddison and a rocket header from Cuti Romero. It really was, but what a cross that was from Mads.
Right on point. It's lovely to have a player who's going to provide us such delivery from free kick situations like that. You just know he's got that in him, in his locker. But talking about the Romero situation, obviously he went off, that was his last action of the game, he went off. Being at the ground, did you notice anything in Romero, like him being unstable or anything, or is just a thing that maybe professionals would notice?
No, I didn't notice anything. I didn't notice a clash of heads before the goal happened, like a few ways before the goal happened, and then I don't know. All I saw from the stands was Romero arguing with Ange to not come off. And I was like, why is he coming off? I didn't really understand it. I thought maybe he's got a knock or something, but I didn't realise it was concussion. And then it came to light just after the sub that it was a concussion. Well, it wasn't a concussion sub, but it wasn't a concussion sub.
Well, if you saw, watching the game on TV, there was just after he scored, there was clearly some concern from players. I was just wondering if there's anything you saw on the ground.
No, nothing from the stands. No one really mentioned anything either around me. But from what you saw on TV, you clearly saw after he scored that he just wasn't right. He was holding his head, no real celebration in there as well. He looked a bit dazed and confused as well. So I think the right decision was made by Ange Postecoglou and the staff. Ange did mention that the medical team, after that knock to the head, they were keeping a close eye on him. But funnily enough, he gets whacked in the head. He's clearly not right, and then he scores a bullet header. Yeah. And that cross as well was like a really hard cross. So it must have hurt his head a lot, and obviously, hopefully, he'll be all right. But he was arguing with Ange a lot to not come off. But I think the right decision was made, wasn't it?
And it was interesting because there was quite a lengthy VAR process of review for the goal, for the offside. And you would have thought maybe the sub could have been made during the review, but after the review, Romero gives another celebration, and then he got taken off immediately after that. So it must have been frustrating for him. And what was also a bit annoying is he actually started the game really well, Romero, and I actually thought he was being really aggressive and he was winning some really good headers and actually setting us up on attacks and stuff like that. So it was a bit of a blow to lose him after 15 minutes just after he scored as well. And I think as well, just after we scored, Brentford then started taking control of the game. Yeah,
no, they did, and they started peppering us. They started, coming down the side of, I think it was Emerson mainly, to be honest, because I think they gave Emerson a bit of a torrid time yesterday. I think he stood up to the challenge a lot. I like the way he came into the midfield and he was winning the ball back quite a number of times, but I think Rico Henry was giving him a really hard time for a majority of the game.
Yeah, I think Emerson, I don't want to blame totally on the fact that he had to play a bit an inverted role and then maybe He had to adjust from going inverted when you're defending to going out wide. Sorry, when you're in possession, you're inverted and going out wide when you're defending, and then you have to adjust that position very quickly. But I think in terms of like the second goal, I don't think you can blame that because that's from a free kick situation. He was always in the right position and he just got done. But Rico Henry was really causing us problems down that side. We know as well late right at the end of the first half as well, he also got a lot of joy down the left, and Mbeumo missed an open goal. But there are warning signs. Obviously, the penalty was beforehand. I guess we'll touch on that. Son making the foul in the box, Jensen going in, Son tracking him, but they were getting in down the sides and in the underlaps quite consistently. And one thing that was a bit of a worry for me is especially in the first half, it was more of an issue that they were able to beat our press pretty consistently. I didn't think our pressing game was that impressive yesterday. I thought that when Brentford were able to get the ball on the ground and we were pressing high and trying to win the ball in the final third, I actually thought Brentford it was too easy for them to play through our press and then all of a sudden getting on our back four on the attack, and that was a bit of a worry, especially in the first half. And I think at times our defence was a bit messy in that first half. When it comes to touching on the penalty though, and just in the key incidents, I thought it was a penalty. There's clearly contact from Son. I think if the referee gives it there and then, I've personally got no complaints about the penalty being given. I am frustrated that in my book it was a soft penalty, and VAR going back to that, even though he didn't sweep his leg, he'd made contact with his leg and it was a foul. But for VAR, I think for me to go back to that, I think VAR should only be going back for blatant penalties and massive errors missed by the referee. And I think I think other fans, will argue whether that's a penalty or not. I think it's a bit of a not 50-50, but I think it was a bit up in the air, in my opinion, whether it was a penalty for sure. And I think VAR shouldn't, in my opinion, be getting involved in those kind of incidences. So it's a bit frustrating that the game had played a couple of minutes or whatever, a minute or so after that incident, and they pulled it back for a soft penalty when I think the game probably should have played on. They should have stuck with the on-field decision, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think. Look, I don't think you can really talk about the decision in a bad light too much if they do eventually come to the right decision. I get what you're saying. Maybe for clear and obvious and big decisions like that, which are blatant penalties, which they miss, that they go back for them. And sometimes with these ones that are a bit up in the air, they don't go back to. But I do think, all in all, if they go back and get the right decision, I think it's a good thing, in my opinion.
It reminded me, though, of if you remember when VAR was first implemented, just through lockdown, they were literally giving penalties for VAR decisions for little taps in the box and stuff. And then they decided to move away from that and make a higher bar for intervention. And I thought that was a good decision. You didn't want to see penalties just for little taps in the penalty area. And I thought this decision in this game was a bit of a reversion to more going back to softer decisions. That was a bit frustrating. I don't
think it's as soft as maybe a lot of the ones that you're talking about in those moments, because I do think that the attacker takes the ball around Son and Son clips him and he goes down. So I think that I think it's the right decision.
It's a kick and there's contact, but it wasn't a sweep of the leg. I think if he sweeps it and he brings him down, I think it's a lot clearer. I think contact's not always a foul. And just because I know it is a foul in this case, but I think it was a soft foul. I don't think it was a blatant penalty, in my opinion. So I think it was a penalty. Look, I don't want to stuck on this point too long. I just think it was a penalty. I'm just a bit frustrated with VAR intervention. But I think at the end of the day, Brentford will feel like the right decision was made. So I think it is what it is. You just got to live with it.
And that's the way I feel about it as well. I was obviously frustrated to give away a penalty, but I do think the right decision came to light in the end. And Vicario gets booked during the penalty decision.
Yeah, I didn't see what it was for.
Because these things are becoming more prevalent. The referees have been given an instruction to, if players are arguing with the ref, or if they're crowding the ref, or if they're complaining to the ref, they're going to get booked. And that's what Vicario was doing. He was in the ref's ear talking to him about probably why the decision shouldn't have been given, and he gets booked for it.
Did you see what was going on?
I just saw a match of the day.
Oh, you didn't actually see it at the ground?
No.
Because the TV cameras, what we were watching, they didn't actually show the incident. They kind of just took a shot to Vicario and he was booked, so I didn't really see what happened.
Yeah, I just saw a match of the day. He was in the ref's ear, basically. That's what happened.
I see. Okay, and then obviously Mbeumo puts it away. It's 1-1. And at that point, Brentford gained a bit of momentum. And then they hit us with, the 2-1 pretty soon after, which was a bit of a defensive calamity, I think.
But it was. It definitely was. I mean, Emerson for that goal gets done on the left-hand side or our right-hand side. And we should be doing a lot more to stop that goal happening. And that these goals are so avoidable. And obviously it gets because first of all, if Mickey van der Ven doesn't touch that ball, that's not a goal.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was literally a poor shot into Vicario's arms.
He would have saved it.
It was so frustrating and so unjust and so unlucky for Mickey van der Ven, who was having a great game, by the way. Just clips on him and then it goes and loops over Vicario and it's in the goal. So when you look at it and the two goals that we conceded, one was, a lucky penalty, and the other one was a lucky deflection off Mickey van der Ven. So the two goals we actually conceded, as much as Brentford were putting on top of us, were probably very fortuitous for Brentford.
But they did miss that open goal right at the end of the half as well.
Yeah,
so you got to pretty much say that should have been a goal. So we got away
and
with
in that
one.
moment, Emerson gets done as well.
Exactly. Rico Henry was causing all sorts of trouble down the left-hand side. I felt like we were good in possession. Without really testing Brentford going forward. We created a few similar to some pre-season. To be fair, I think this game followed on from what we were seeing in pre-season. I think a lot of good possession, a lot of nice passing, without creating openings, without really creating a lot of clear-cut opportunities. But you can see what ANGE is trying to do, and it's not easy to dominate possession, dominate Premier League games to the level we did yesterday. And it was very good that even so soon in Ange's tenure, we're already seeing possession numbers like we're seeing, and we're seeing Tottenham keeping the ball a lot more. And I think in spurts we are definitely looking creative, and when we are penning them in and we are able to stop them countering, we do look a very dominant team. And
look, let's get this right. You're playing Brentford away. This ain't an easy game. I think only Arsenal out of the top 6 won there last year. Not many teams will go there and pick up 3 points. And I think we gave a really good account of ourselves. We got better in terms of the way we were defending and the way we let Brentford play through our press and get round the back of us a lot in the second half. I thought Ange sorted out a lot of those problems at half time. But after that first half, where you would say it was a bit of I would say Brentford maybe just about had the better of it, but it was more or less an even game in my opinion in that first half.
Right at the end.
We did equalise right at the end. With a great goal, in my opinion. But what was your opinion at half-time? How did you think that first half went?
I thought it went okay. I didn't think we were brilliant. I thought defensively, Brentford were causing us way too much trouble. I thought pressing-wise, as I said before, I thought they were beating our press way too easily, and that was a cause for concern. But I did like the way we were looking in possession. I thought we started the game after Brentford's initial bit. We got the goal when we were looking quite good at that point, but then Romero went off, and there was we were getting loads of yellow cards. Like Skip got booked, and Sanchez came on and got booked. Maddison got booked. Vicario got booked. So there was a lot of incidences going on, and it was kind of hard for us to deal with. But I thought we ended the half really strongly. Apart from that, Mbeumo miss.
We did.
I thought we ended the half really well. I wouldn't say the goal was reward for our efforts, but I think it was definitely an indication of us growing back into the game and taking control of the game. And I really like just us throwing caution to the wind. And I know it looks dangerous when we're getting counter-attacked, especially at times yesterday. We were pretty much leaving a 2-on-2 at some points with our back two and Brentford's front two, which was definitely dangerous. But I did like Emerson and Udogie getting involved in attacks. Udogie was seeing a lot of the ball, which was really, really good. I felt like we were getting, especially in the first half, we were really getting a lack of joy in the wide areas, and that was a big problem because of Brentford's setup in a 3-5-2. If we weren't going to get joy in the wide areas, it was going to be very, very difficult to break them down centrally. And I think we tried our best. We had a couple of moments, most in the second half, we'll talk about in a bit. The first half, we had a couple of moments to try and break them down, but it wasn't really working. And then out wide, Rico Henry was winning his battle with Kulusevski, and Aaron Hickey was winning his battle with Son. Son didn't really create much, and apart from a few half chances, Son had a volley at the back post. We didn't really create much. So as much as I was encouraged by the possession we were having and how we were looking, I think at the end of the first half, you had to say we looked a bit messy at the back and we weren't really creating. So things had to improve a bit in the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Ange did sort out a lot of those problems. If you bring up the phone, you'll see the progress bar throughout the game, and it does tell the story of the game, because you see, we had that spell of dominance right at the beginning when Romero scores, and then Brentford come on top of us a bit, and then for the rest of the half it was a bit of both ways. But look at that second half, that progress bar in the second half. We dominated the ball. Apart from a few breakaways from Brentford, where they did come close a couple of times, we absolutely dominated the ball. The majority of the game, I think probably about 80% of that second half was all played in their half. And not only their half, but in their latter stages of the half. So what frustrated me was we had the ball so much in those areas of the pitch, but we couldn't seem to hurt them as much as we would like. I thought Kulusevski, as much as he grew into it a bit in the second half, being able to beat players, his quality on the ball was nowhere near good enough. Son wasn't in the game enough, and I think Richarlison had a really difficult day. I think Richarlison is always going to have those kind of days if you're playing against a low block, right? Because he doesn't have the build-up play. His touch was awful. I felt like every time the ball came to Richarlison, it was just bouncing off him every time. And we did create a couple of chances for him where maybe he could have done better. And I didn't want to bring up this point, but I think if Harry Kane was in those chances, I think we do go on and win the game yesterday.
Yeah, I think he takes one of them for sure. Ange said after the game that he felt like we didn't use Richarlison enough during the game, and like trying to find him in behind and stuff like that. The problem was because Brentford had the three centre-backs, it was very, very difficult to find that space and pick the lock. And we did it a couple of times. Maddison slipped him through and it forced a good save out of Flecken, and that was probably his best chance. And he had another one where, again, Maddison set him up and he probably picked the wrong corner. He went for the far post when probably the near post was the free corner at that moment, and maybe a more confident Richarlison choose a different option. But apart from those opportunities, it was very few and far between. The crosses in the box, it was just so full of Brentford defenders. It was very hard for Richarlison to get any sort of advantage in the area. The crosses weren't good enough, but it's very difficult when you're pretty much doing a 3-on-1 essentially when it comes to Richarlison. We had other players in the box, but Skip and sometimes it was Udogie. You don't really back them often enough to be getting on the end of things. So it was a very difficult day for Richarlison. As you say, there were times when he was coming deep to pick up the ball, but he just doesn't have the same effect as Harry Kane when he does it. His passing is nowhere near to the level Kane's was. So when he comes deep, I don't really feel like he's that effective. I feel like he needs to be on the last shoulder, penning the centre-backs back. And it was when he was doing that bit, it was really hard to get him involved because of the amount of defenders around him.
Yeah, they brought up this graphic on Match of the Day. I don't know if you saw it, of our positions under our last game for Conte and our positions yesterday on the pitch. I mean, Richarlison was pretty much for Conte playing as like a central midfielder. And then like Richarlison yesterday was our second most furthest player forward. And I think those are the areas he needs to be in more. And I think against other teams he will get more joy. But I think yesterday was a very frustrating outing for all our front three, not just Richarlison. And I feel frustrated that a lot of fans yesterday inside the stadium, and maybe fans I saw over social media and online, were really laying into Richarlison. But I think Sonny and Kulusevski needs to come under the same criticism as well, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd say more criticism, to be honest, because I think the onus, in my opinion, was on them more than it was on Richarlison to really make things happen in the wide areas. I think Richarlison was very much going to rely on the supply to him to open up the chances. And, when we were doing it centrally, he was getting a bit more joy, but from wide areas, there was just absolutely nothing happening. And we weren't able to really hurt them. And that was a big shame, especially in that formation, when they've got the wing backs and they've literally just got them two out wide. I think that's maybe where Postecoglou's system maybe got undone a bit, because the inverted fullbacks coming centrally. It did give us numbers centrally to help keep possession, but when we were trying to threaten from the wide areas, we couldn't get the overloads consistently enough on the wide areas to help out the wingers. And so when the wingers got the ball there in one-on-one situations with a wing back, but also you had the wide centre-backs coming over to help defend as well, and you also had defensive midfielders from Brentford. They had 3 on the pitch, so it was very difficult for us to get any sort of joy in the wide areas, and then it was very clogged up centrally. So I think, but I still believe that the wingers, or the onus was on them more to beat their players and open up space, and they just weren't able to do it.
How do you feel yesterday about the shape on the pitch? Because I felt like, I know it's looked like this in pre-season and we've made it work, but I felt like at times for the majority of the game we were just way too narrow on that football pitch. We weren't stretch it enough. We weren't being able to get to the proper wide areas and get good crosses into the box.
If you get the average positions up, you can see it for yourself. How we
where do I find the
yeah, there it is. And then you go into Tottenham. There you go. You can get that up on the pitch, on the screen. As you can see how narrow that is.
Yeah.
You have Kulusevski. Son, by the way, look, he's quite far up. You've got Emerson and Udogie, very narrow. You've got, everyone's bunched together essentially, and Kulusevski is our widest player on the right-hand side. But it was very difficult for us to penetrate on the wide areas because of the wingers' lack of ability to beat a man. And then and it was very congested centrally, and with Brentford's back 3 and midfield 3, it was always going to be extremely and they're a well-organised team. They defend well. They're all very aggressive, very strong players. It was always going to be very difficult. Apart from the only times we looked really good centrally was when Bissouma was taking charge, and he was obviously the man of the match yesterday.
He was awesome.
I think our best moments were all leading from Bissouma wriggling in between 2 or 3 players and making things happen. There was one moment where he does a brilliant pre-assist to Maddison. He flicks it round the corner, and Maddison, one of the few times he was able to find a pocket space in the area that he likes it, just in front of the back 4, and he was able to slip in Richarlison and create the opportunity. But unfortunately, those opportunities are few and far between because of how Brentford set up. And this is what I was saying in the preview. Even though I didn't envisage Brentford playing a back 3, I know they're capable of it. I was saying the way Brentford play and set up is actually pretty perfect to battling how we're going to play, because of how congested and how organised they are, and because of they're very good from set pieces and very good in transitions. And I think that's pretty much how it came to be. But I actually think when we come up against teams who are going to be more open, we are going to find a lot more joy, and we are going to find a lot more space. And I think that's what Postecoglou, that's when we're going to really flourish, because we're going to have bodies in and around the midfield when we're playing against teams who are going to be less congested as Brentford and going to offer us more space and back themselves in more one-on-one duels. That's when we're going to really like, for example, I see us getting a lot more joy against Man United on Saturday because they're going to be more open. And so I see us being able to create more chances defensively. Whether we get more joy, we'll have to wait and see. But I think on the ball, I can see us being a lot more creative and having more joy in central areas because of the numbers we're going to have there. But in this game particularly, it was always going to be a difficult start. But considering all those difficulties, I think we did manage the game well. And I thought second half, the pressing, I wouldn't say we were pressing better, necessarily winning the ball back in good areas, but what we were definitely doing is I think Brentford were getting more tired, and they were resorting to a lot more long passes because we kept up our energy, and it meant that we were able to pen them in, and our long passes we were collecting, we were being very aggressive at the back, and it allowed us to recycle possession constantly and kind of have wave after wave of attack. But unfortunately, Brentford were defending very, very well, and it was really hard to break them down.
It was, but let's just touch on Bissouma again, because, again, he was just unbelievable yesterday. We've been banging on about it. This is the year of Bissouma. He's going to have a top season, and he has started the season as he means to go on. I think he was the best player on that pitch, hands down, and the stats show up. I mean, you looked at the stats. I mean, he was like first for everything yesterday. He really was. And you look at that, dribble attempts, 5 successful out of 6, ground duels 9 successful out of 12, clearances 2, interceptions 4, and tackles 3. I mean, that is what you call a midfield machine yesterday, and we really saw yesterday that Bissouma that we bought from Brighton, didn't we?
Yeah, and this is the Bissouma that we knew we could be getting when we signed him from Brighton. This is what we saw when we see him come to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and completely dominate midfield, and it's impossible to get the ball off him. I mean, 5 out of 6 dribbles in central midfield in a congested area. This 5 out of 6 dribbles is impressive. Like on its own. Then you add into the fact that you're playing against 3 defence midfielders in a very congested area, like in a very tight stadium like Brentford away. That makes it even more impressive that he was able to find those little pockets of space. He was able to commit players, and what that does is once he commits those players and gets past them, it opens up space for the likes of Maddison, because he draws it. All of a sudden he would have to draw attention. People are going to come to him, and that opens up for space for the other attackers to all of a sudden make their runs and find space in between the lines and pockets of space. So that was so impressive from Bissouma. I thought his passing as well. I'm just reading a stat.
92.2%. But 107 passes, that is.
I'm just looking on Twitter. It just literally just flashed up. He completed 22 out of 26 line-breaking passes as well. So that's literally progressive passes in between the lines, finding Spurs teammates. And that's invaluable.
And we were talking a lot coming into this season, what is the most perfect number 6 for ANGE, and what you need to do in an ANGE system. And what you need to do, right, is you need to be combative. You need to win every ball that comes your way. But not only that, but you need to be really good on the ball, and you need to charge into those spaces. You need to be press resistant, and you need to be able to pick those passes. Well, he showed every single one of those facets yesterday.
100%. And as you say, even in the ground duels as well, defensively, 9 out of 12 ground duels is absolutely fantastic for a defensive midfielder as well. So he's clearly doing his job defensively fantastically. Albeit, I would say, maybe there was a couple of moments, especially for the second goal, and there was a moment when Vicario punched it out and it fell to Damsgaard on the edge of the box, and he could have scored. I think he could have done a bit better for both those moments. But look, nothing's perfect. But I thought on the ball he was a joy to watch. It was Moussa Dembele-esque, the way he was just gliding past players like they weren't even there, and opening up space. And those are things on the pitch which are hard to quantify, although we've done it with dribbles and stuff. But it's not something that usually grabs the headlines on the pitch, but it's just as valuable as players in the forward line.
Everyone talks about Spurs getting back to the Pochettino days, right? And I don't really like sometimes comparing current players to past players, but I am actually really seeing a lot of similarities in those 3 players yesterday. You got Yves Bissouma, who put in a Moussa Dembele-esque performance, like you say. You got Maddison, who put in a very Christian Eriksen performance yesterday, with his deliveries in the box and pure chance creation. And Mickey van de Ven with a Jan Vertonghen-esque performance. And I mean, I'm not even clutching at straws here. I mean, that is exactly what I saw on the pitch yesterday.
Yeah, you can definitely see the similarities in terms of Van de Ven making his Premier League debut. After only Ange said in his press conferences he'd only had 3 training sessions with the team. He'd only been at Tottenham officially for a week. And so to put in a display like that, so confident, so composed at the back. Yes, there were a few problems. He had a bit of a dodgy moment near the end of the game where he could have given away a penalty, but those are going to be ironed out. He's still a very young player, but he clearly showed maturity beyond his years, the way he was gliding past players. There was one moment in the second half where he's the last man at the back, and Brentford, I think it was Mbeumo, is pressing him, and he's facing his own goal, and instead of passing it back to Vicario like most defenders do, he spun Mbeumo and decided to charge into the space and try and create an attack. And that was like a moment for me. I was like, okay, this guy is clearly very, very confident. This guy is not shy about his qualities, and he's clearly very strong. People, we were talking about the aerial stats before he signed about, they didn't look great. Well, he won 4 out of 5 aerial duels yesterday. So, clearly he can use his height, and clearly he can win headers. I think his ground duels, he won 5 out of 5 ground duels as well. I think the stats are also on the ground as well.
Had a couple of shots as well.
Had a couple of headers as well. One, I think, was shot over the bar, which maybe he could have done better with. But I think it wasn't a perfect debut, but as debuts go, it was pretty damn impressive, I have to say.
And talking of dribbling out the back as well, I thought he went on a few marauding runs, which we used to see accustomed to Jan Vertonghen. So I think for a first game, three training sessions for him. And not only that, but his defensive partner goes off after 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And when they were practicing in training, I'm sure they weren't practicing with him and Sanchez, they were practicing with him and Romero. So for him to get used to a completely new partner as well in your debut, I think this guy is going to be an absolutely top player for us.
And you can see his pace, what an asset that's going to be. How many times he came and engaged people in the wide areas and just swept up with his pace when it looked like Brentford were going to be on the attack and looking more dangerous. I think it happened countless times during the game. So really, really good, really impressive opening opening game from him.
Yeah, and I could definitely see him playing at left back as well in that inverted role. I think he would suit both roles, the left centre back and the left back role. So I think we've got a really top player here. And for as debuts go, I mean, it was an awesome debut for him. In terms of James Maddison, I mean, his debut, he was probably the best of the debutants. I think he really took authority on that pitch. He looked like a leader. He was putting in a few rough challenges. I mean, he could have got sent off at times, but I think once he put on that armband, that was it. I mean, he really, acted like a proper leader on that pitch. He was organising people where to go. On top of that, his chance creation, I mean, 6 key passes in the game is nothing to be sniffed at. His delivery into the box for that first goal was insane. He laid one on for Richarlison where he probably should have done better. I mean, I can't praise Maddison enough for his performance yesterday. And you know what? I was always one. I was excited when we signed Maddison, and I really rated him last season. But I was always one saying, oh, Maddison is a bit overrated. But I was completely wrong on that. And I think he's a top player.
One game you flip, that's it. One game.
No, I was saying that last year as well. But I was talking about when we were linked with him the year before that, last summer.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I thought, I wasn't sure about Maddison. Maybe a bit overrated. But after last season and what he showed in his debut and also what he showed in pre-season, I think that this guy is exactly what we've been missing in that area of the pitch. Since Eriksen has gone, we've had no creativity in the midfield whatsoever. And to lay on his debut, what was it? Like I said, 6 key passes, 2 assists on the day. I mean, come on, man. This guy, he is that guy.
Yeah, he's a damn good player. And I was saying I thought, he's a player who could be playing for City or what, a team right at the top. I really believe in his ability. And I back him to start playing more regularly for England now that he's getting, now he's at a club like Tottenham and he's probably going to have a higher profile. I think he's absolutely superb, and I think he showed on his debut. He seemed like he'd been here for ages, the way he was performing and the leadership he was showing. And he got booked for December, like he was, going to the referee, remonstrating. He was like trying to, back up his teammates at all costs, and he was a bit lucky. Maybe later in the game, made a few fouls, could have been sent off. But I thought that creatively, he was the creative hub of the team, absolutely. And those 6 key passes, you think about all the chances we created, all of them flow through Maddison, and when he gets those pockets of space, he's so hard to stop. You can't give him any time on the ball. I think teams are going to cotton on to that, so he's got to be careful. But I thought that it was a really impressive debut. It was unfortunate not to have more assists. If Richarlison's finishing was a bit better, he probably would have. His set pieces were very, very dangerous as well. Shame he didn't get too many opportunities to shoot. I think he had 1 shot on target throughout the game, which was a pretty tame effort, but I'm sure that will come.
That frustrated me yesterday, actually. I noticed this a lot, where Spurs were passing it around the edge of the box, right? And there were a number of opportunities where Maddison could have swung a shot. Kulusevski could have swung a shot. Son could have swung a shot. But they always took that extra pass. And we had good opportunities to shoot from outside the box, maybe 25, 20 yards yesterday. But we just kept trying to walk it into the box. And that was a source of frustration for me. I felt like we really could have maybe got more goals, because we've got quality from shooting from range. Son, Maddison, Kulusevski, they can all do it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why they didn't just pull the trigger at times yesterday. I
agree. That was a bit frustrating as well. Too many passes, maybe. That was maybe one of the criticisms you can say. But look, I'm sure that will come. It's the first game. You can see what ANGE is trying to implement. And I think it's very important at the start of a project, you just stick by that philosophy of how you're trying to play, and the results will start coming and the football will start coming.
All right, well, all in all, I think it was a really good first tester for Ange Postecoglou in a really difficult game. There are bigger tests to come, and Manchester United next weekend is going to be a big test. But I think you've got to be happy with the way we played our football in the first game. We were aggressive. We went for them. We were playing high up the pitch. We played the majority of our football in the opposition's half. So I think they're a good thing, good signs and good things to come this season. I think there were clearly teething problems within the system and clearly things that we need to work on. And it wasn't the perfect game by any stretch of the imagination. But as a starting block, as a building block, I think it was a really good start to go on.
Yeah, I think as an overall performance, I wouldn't say it was like an amazing performance, but it was definitely encouraging, and that's the most important thing. You can definitely see what Ange is trying to do, and I think the fact that he's already implementing his style to the level that he is so early is very impressive. And I think that overall, I think if you take an objective look, I think the defence was a bit of a mess first half, and we were able to sort it out. going in attack, we weren't able to create loads of chances. But I think the way we were able to keep possession, the way we were passing it about, the way we were like manipulating the play to open up space, and the way certain players were accommodating into the system like Bissouma and Maddison, that was really, really impressive and really encouraging. And you just know it's only going to get better and better as the weeks go on. And that's the most encouraging thing. So overall, I'm very happy. I wouldn't say it was like I got blown away by the performance on the opening day, but I would say as performances go out the start of a project in terms of envisaging what we're doing, I was very, very happy with that.
Absolutely. So look, that is our match review. Please let us know your thoughts on the game in the comment section below. And now let's move on. But before we move on, there's been a tweet, hasn't there, from Dan Kilpatrick this morning.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the actual tweet, but I'm seeing a lot of the aggregators saying it. He's saying... Dan Kilpatrick is saying that Tottenham are expected to make a formal move for Ghent striker Gift Orban before the end of the window. Orban is valued at more than £25 million by Ghent, but Spurs believe the Nigerian has enormous potential. So that's really promising. Let's hope that this interest gets stepped up a lot more. I have a feeling he says before the end of the window, because Ange was saying, you know, how Tottenham are very much focused on getting players out the door right now and then bring in. So maybe it's I hope it's not a case of Tottenham waiting to kind of get players out before we bring him in. But I think we just know we have to reduce the numbers of the squad. We got way too big a squad right now. So I think the focus is probably just doing the deals to get a lot of the players out the door before we focus on adding players to an already bloated squad. But let's just hope that that doesn't come at a cost of this deal by the end of the window. But it's promising that he's saying that the interest seems to be stepping up.
Yeah, I mean, I've been going on about Gift Orban for a while now, and I really love this guy from what I've seen so far. Obviously, it's just the Belgium league, so you've got to caveat it like that a little bit, but the sheer number of goals to number of games he's played is just incredible. It really is incredible. And when you look at the attributes that he does have, he's strong, he's fast, I mean, he's lightning quick, he knows how to finish like better than...
Little bulldog.
Yeah, he really is. And I mean, for an Ange Postecoglou system, when you're pressing from the front, you need to be very clinical as your striker, and you need to be physical, and you need to press from the front. And I think he does all those things to a high level, albeit it has been just in the Belgian league. But when he has played in Europe as well, he's excelled. I know it's the Conference League and it's not the highest level of European football, but you can only go on what you've got.
Look, at the end of the day, he's playing for Ghent. It's not like he's playing for like a team who should be winning the Conference League, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think from that point of view, it's still impressive even that in European football, you still need to be somewhat of a, like, obviously you're not a great team just because you're in the Conference League, but you qualify for the Conference League because you're finishing in the higher positions in your European league. So it's clearly the better teams in those leagues that are going to be in Europe. And when you're playing for Ghent and you're scoring goals that consistently, and not only are you scoring goals, you're just making it look easy. That's the thing for me. It's not that like he's got a few goals, like he's making it look like it's too easy for him. And that shows that's a level, that's a player potentially playing below his level.
You know, yesterday for Ghent, he played it like wing back.
Wing back?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's weird.
Or like it was like wing back because like on the left wing he played, and they played like a 3-4-3 formation. And he was on the left wing.
I'm saying, was Conte in charge?
Yeah, probably. Conte's gone to Ghent. But look, that's the news at the moment. Obviously, we'll bring you a Tottenham update yesterday, and anything else that comes to light, we'll bring you in there. But let's move on to Twitter Reacts, and let's see how Twitter reacted to the game yesterday. First of all, Nathan Stum saying, even better decision to make Maddison and Romero vice-captains and not Dyer. I think that both Romero and Maddison on the pitch took authority. I know Romero wasn't on there for long enough. He was only on for like 12-13 minutes, but I saw like a different maybe mentality from Christian Romero yesterday, and definitely James Maddison. James Maddison was a proper leader on that pitch yesterday, and I was actually thinking about it yesterday. James Maddison put the armband on his debut. Have you ever remembered a player ever at Spurs to put a captain's armband on their debut?
Great question. Can I remember a Tottenham player who's ever put their armband on their debut?
And let us know in the comment section if you remember someone, because I couldn't think of one person.
Sheringham's return, maybe?
Yeah, but he'd already been at the club.
Second debut?
He'd already been at the club.
Yeah, it might be the first time I can remember, unless it happened like way back when. In the Premier League era, Is there a captain? Gallas, was he captain on his debut? Maybe. Because I remember Redknapp gave him the captaincy.
Yeah, but wasn't Ledley King? Wasn't Ledley King?
Yeah, King was still there. Yeah, I can't remember too many times. Who was captain after King?
Dawson.
It was Dawson, yeah. And then when Dawson left, it became under Poch. Who was captain under Poch in his first season?
Kabul started captain, didn't he?
Kabul started, yeah. That wasn't his debut. So, yeah, it might well be. It might well be the first time.
Yeah, it's mad. It's mad. Like, first ever time on a debut, you get the captaincy and you play like that. Come on, big things to come from Mads.
Anyone in the comments, let us know.
But next is Tommy on Twitter says Bissouma is him. 100% he's that guy. Bissouma is that guy. And it's so vindicating when you've been talking about something for so long, all summer. Bissouma is going to have a massive season, and he puts in a performance in pre-season like that and backs it up with an even better display in the first game of the Premier League. And we all knew what a player Bissouma was. He just didn't show it for one reason or another last year. Maybe the shackles were on him from Conte, didn't get a consistent run in the team, whatever it may be. But now we are starting to see the real Bissouma, aren't we?
Yeah, you just saw him just so full of confidence, and when he's in full flight like that, he's absolute delight to watch. And you're looking at the current deals as well in the Premier League that are being done for central midfielders. You know, Chelsea demanding 50 million for Gallagher. You know, Caicedo's going for 110 million. Rice going for 105 million. And to think we got Bissouma for 25 million. I'm looking at Bissouma in the form that, if he's in the form that he's in yesterday and he's going to play consistently like that, I really believe he's up there, if not better than some of those names I just mentioned. Honestly, I really do. I think he's that good, and I think his performance level yesterday was that strong that I think it's going to be impossible for people to ignore if he consistently plays like that for Spurs.
Yeah. Absolutely, and a few stats to back up, which we brought you on the match review, but we'll bring it again. Why not? Yves Bissouma against Brentford, 103 accurate passes, 92% completion rate, 1 key pass, 7 out of 8 dribbles completed, 11 out of 15 ground duels won, 2 clearances, 2 interceptions. Bossed that midfield today, and that's exactly right. Next one is from the Spurs Express, quoting Charlie Eccleshare, saying Tottenham registered 358 touches in the attacking third against Brentford today, more than they recorded in any Premier League match last season. Their best last season was 319 away to Bournemouth, and if you remember that game was clearly the game where we were playing in the opposition's half the most, as the stats lay out. And last season was just this game was already a completely different kettle of fish than anything that we saw last season.
100%, and to do this on game week 1 as well, like to do this right out the bat, like show a new way of playing. I've got stats which we'll go into in the 5 takeaways about the difference in what Ange is already showing, but it's really, really encouraging, and that's what I'm delighted about. He's already implementing how he wants to play straight away, and to be hitting those kind of numbers immediately in a very tough game like Brentford away as well is a sign of things to come, and that's what I'm excited about.
Absolutely. Another one here from the Spurs Express giving us some Mickey van der Ven stats, saying 5 clearances, 100% ground duels won, 5 out of 5, 4 out of 5 aerial duels, 67 accurate passes, 94.4 pass completion rate, and 0 times dribbled past as well. Unbelievable debut from the Dutchman, in my opinion. And I was worried, I kept saying it, I was worried about how he's going to acclimatise, or how quickly he's going to acclimatise to the Premier League. Well, if this is anything to go by, I had nothing to worry about whatsoever.
Yeah, if that's going to be his debut in like a tough away ground like Brentford, and he's going to play like that, so assured and so confident, I really think he looks like a player who just has that self-belief where, you know, look, Ange had no worries, but I didn't think he was going to chuck him straight in. I really didn't, and he did. He said, I saw enough in training. This guy's clearly a very good footballer, and he just chucked him straight into the first team. I think that's an indication of how impressed he's probably been with him when he's had him looked at him in the flesh, and also probably his own confidence. He had no worries about him being overawed by the occasion, or, you know, you've seen defenders have really dodgy starts and just not look confident and take time to like bed in, but he just like fitted in like he'd been there for ages.
Just look at Pau Torres over the weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
Pau Torres looked terrible in that Villa defence on the weekend, and Van der Ven has come in and he has literally taken to this team like a duck to water, and I think that this partnership between him and Romero is absolutely going to flourish, with Romero's kind of sense of maybe sense of the captaincy and authority maybe he's going to have in that back line. I think he's going to grow as a player for it. I think Van de Ven is already showing what he can do, and I think they're only going to get better as well. So we need cover for them, though. That's the main thing. We really do need cover for them. Next up, another one for the Spurs Express, giving us James Maddison's stats, saying two assists, 6 key passes, 1 big chances created, 2 fouls, 1. A brilliant debut from the Spurs number 10. And being given the number 10 shirt is after Harry Kane leaves 3 days before this game. Is no small thing, in my opinion. And for Maddison to wear that number 10 shirt, to put in a performance like that, show authority on the football pitch, show what we've been missing pretty much since Christian Eriksen has left the football team. I mean, again, this is a player who is going to flourish for us this season. Yeah, and he took that responsibility with both hands, and he clearly showed, I want to be the main man. Kane's gone, I'm going to be that creative hub of the team that maybe is that void that we're going to miss without Harry Kane in the team. And I thought he really showed yesterday that he's up to the challenge, and I can't wait for what the season brings for him. And next, we've got Nathan Clark. He was responding to a tweet that said, Richarlison registered the joint fewest touches of 34 of any starting player today and recorded just 1 shot on target. And then Nathan Clark quote tweeted that saying, last season at Celtic, Kyogo averaged 4.9 touches per 90, by far the lowest among the centre forwards in the SPL last season.
4.9?
14.
Oh, 14. I was about to say 4. That's very low. 14.9. Yeah, and that's what we were saying about the striking position in Postecoglou's system. Obviously, when you've got someone like Harry Kane, I think himself, he's like kind of not going to allow that to happen because he just loves to be involved in the game. But maybe for someone like Richarlison, that'll benefit him in a way, because we know that his build-up play is not the best, and we know that like when you fizz it into him and you ask him to trap the ball and hold it up, it's not his strongest point. So maybe it's in a weird way, him just being less involved in that kind of stuff is probably to his benefit.
Yeah, I would say yes as well, but I'd also like to see a bit of variation in the play. I was looking at Son being a bit wasted on the left-hand side and Richarlison being a bit wasted in the middle. I would like to see them maybe interchange a lot more throughout the game, maybe get the opponent double guessing a little bit where which player is going to be, make us a bit more unpredictable, because I think Son being pushed out to the left and Richarlison just hanging around there in the centre was a little bit too predictable. So I would like to see them maybe interchange a lot more throughout the game.
Yeah, but having said that, I was thinking about like, if Son would have started in the 9 yesterday, would anything have changed in terms of like how involved he was in the game, in that particular game? I think he also would have struggled in that.
He would have, but he potentially would have finished off one of those chances.
Yeah, he potentially would have. Yeah, the chance maybe because he's a better finisher than Richarlison. I think
Son did have one finish at the back post. Obviously, it was a very hard one with the volley, but it went wide.
So I agree with you. I think he might have finished one of those chances, but I don't think he would have gotten any more chances than Richarlison got.
Yeah, I agree with that. Next up from Spurs OTM, just a quote from Ange saying, Ange on if the pre-match huddle in front of the fans was asked or player-led. He says, nah, not me, mate. I have enough on my plate. It was driven by the players, and I thought our supporters were outstanding today. It is fair to say that we have put them through a fair bit in this pre-season. We can all try and do is give them the hope and belief that we'll have a season where they can see a team that is growing and representing the football club in the best possible way. I thought the supporters were outstanding today, and hopefully they leave the ground maybe disappointed we weren't able to get the win, but at least seeing the players are fully committed to us trying to become a football team that makes an impact. And you know what? That's exactly how I felt coming out of that stadium yesterday. I was frustrated that we didn't take the 3 points, but I left the ground with optimism of what's going to happen this season and the way we started off with life under Ange Ball. And that huddle was a great idea, because I tell you what, being in that away end, I was right there, right at the front by that huddle. Sonny's leading the team over towards us, and it really got the crowd going. The crowd went absolutely bonkers after that, and then Sonny came up to the fans after the huddle and gave it all that, and got the fans really going. And the fans were really up for it yesterday. And I was a bit worried coming into this game, thinking after Harry Kane has gone, are the fans going to be a bit dejected? But no, there was a feeling yesterday that I haven't felt in a long time, a start of a new era, and there was a bit of that feeling under Conte, but it was nowhere near the feeling I got yesterday in that stands, and everyone was just in kind of good spirits yesterday, and it was good to see.
Yeah, and Ange, it was interesting to hear what Ange's comments in the pre-season and like talking about the fans, and he was saying how fans are the best judges, and he said my aim isn't all like, obviously he wants to get results, he wants to win, but he said as long as I can keep the fans happy and like they can see what I'm doing, I'm sure that's going to be the best indicator of how good of a job I'm doing, not necessarily just results. And I think we've even seen that, because let's be honest, results early on haven't been great in pre-season and yesterday. It wasn't like the best results, but I think every Tottenham fan is getting on board with what they're seeing, and they're enjoying the kind of football that Ange is trying to implement on the team and the kind of philosophy he's instilling. And I think that is an indication that, and at times last season we were winning games 1-0 and here and there, and Tottenham fans, even just because we were winning doesn't mean we are happy with the performances. So I think goes to show that the fans aren't just blinded by results, and they do see things for what they are at the time on the pitch. And I think that what we're seeing on the pitch with Ange is very easy to buy into for a lot of the fan base.
Yeah, and it's not just that, but I think that over the past 3-4 years, since probably the Champions League run, there's been a massive disconnect between the players, the club and the fans. And I think doing stuff like that, these small little things, can start to rebuild that relationship between the fans, in my opinion. And I felt yesterday there was more of a connection between the players and the fans than there has been in a very long time. And I think, yes, I know that the idea to come over to the fans was to do with Sonny and Maddison arranging it, but I'm telling you, behind the scenes, Ange is drilling into them how important this kind of relationship between the fans is, and I think they grew on that yesterday. So I couldn't be happier. We need that. We need that back at Tottenham because it's been missing for so long. But let's move on. We've got one here about Yves Bissouma again, saying he had more touches, successful dribbles, duels won, successful dribbles and shots against Brentford than any of his 23 Premier League appearances last season for Spurs. A truly standout performance, which we were alluding to before. And this is the map that I was saying about before on Match of the Day, the difference between Antonio Conte's last game and Spurs and Ange Postecoglou's first game. So if you could see that, I don't know if you can see it properly, but that's the average positions pretty much for Conte's last game in blue, and then Postecoglou's first game in white. You could just see there's just a total difference of where we're spending our time on the pitch, which is absolutely brilliant. And this one, I think it stopped. Here we go. The rise of the machine 2023. Yves Bissouma, great standout display today, big season ahead, and you can see that he was an absolute machine yesterday, Yves Bissouma. So hopefully more to come. And that is it from Twitter React. So that is how Twitter reacted to the game yesterday. But now it's time to move on to player ratings for the game 2-2 against Brentford. And let's start off with our goalkeeper, Vicario. All right, we'll wait a sec before. All right.
There you go.
And let's go into player ratings. Let's start off with our goalkeeper, Vicario. 6s all round for Vicario, and I think in the early stages of the game he was putting my heart in my mouth. I mean, with his playing out of the back, and I mean did look dodgy at times, and I think he grew into the game though. I really do think he did that, and I think that he was making a number of good saves. I thought maybe on a couple of times he could have caught the ball instead of punching it out and maybe lashing at it. But I think all in all, it was an okay performance from Vicario. I'm not going to say it's anything spectacular, but a lot of people were laying into him after the game yesterday, and I get it for a few dodgy moments, but those dodgy moments were few and far between, and him rushing out the back as well was a bit dodgy, and he could have given away a penalty as well at one time. But I thought all in all it was okay.
Yeah, I think, look, he made a few saves, which I think all the saves you would expect him to make, to be fair, throughout the game. I think he was a bit hesitant a few times when he came out, and it nearly put us in trouble. And I think he came out maybe too often, but he did, to be fair to him, more often than not when he did come out, he was decisive, and he was able to win the ball and stop attacks at source. So that was decent. I felt like his ability on the ball, I don't know what we saw in him at Empoli to make us believe that he's a very good keeper on the ball, but what I've seen so far doesn't suggest that. as of yet. Maybe it's something that we just he hasn't been given the opportunity yet to show how good he is on the ball. But so far, he does seem a bit nervous. He's been playing the ball out of play too often. His long passing hasn't been good enough. We've seen Ange as well get a bit frustrated when he tries a long pass and goes out of play. So that's definitely something he has to work on, his passing ability as a goalkeeper, because that's becoming more and more important in the modern game. You see like Maddison and Alisson, how good they are with the ball at their feet. And I haven't seen Vicario to be at that level yet. But look, it's still very early days. I think by and large, it was an okay performance, but definitely has to... He needs to be a bit more of a calming influence on the back line. I thought yesterday he just wasn't that enough, but I think what he did in terms of what he generally did do as facts, he probably got more things right than he did wrong, so I think he did okay.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Let's move on to the defensive line, starting off with Emerson at right back. 7s all round for us for Emerson. There was a lot of good in there, also a bit of bad in there from Emerson as well. I think that Rico Henry did give him a torrid time, especially for the goal where he got rinsed on that side, and as well when Mbeumo missed that chance at the back post, Emerson was completely caught out, and Rico Henry did get the better of him. But I thought apart from those moments, I think he defended really well. He was coming into the midfield and winning back the ball time and time again and laying off attacks. And obviously, he scored an absolutely brilliant goal with a finish rifling into the bottom corner of the net. Yeah,
what a finish out of nothing as well. It was out of absolutely nothing. Just you didn't expect that from Emerson whatsoever. But it was a brilliant finish from him. I thought in general he played pretty well. But I think first half, Rico Henry was giving a really, really torrid time. But I think he did calm down in the second half. He was able to readjust, and I think Rico Henry was a lot less effective in the second half than he was in the first half, so that was credit to Emerson. I did feel like because he plays his inverted role, when he's kind of picking up the ball in and around the penalty area, I know he scored, but apart from that, didn't really offer too much. When he's in the wide areas as well, he did a bit of link up with Kulusevski, but other than that, wasn't able to. He never really threatened to create anything, so he's got to improve that. But I thought it was a solid display overall.
And that nutmeg.
Oh, the nutmeg was brilliant.
The nutmeg owns a point on its own.
Yeah, that nutmeg with a bit of skill through it, that was really nice.
Let's move on to Cuti Romero. He went off very early, but Sim gives him a 7. I gave him an 8. I mean, to be on the pitch for 13 minutes and score a goal, I mean, you had to give him an 8 for me. But I think that he showed authority on the football pitch. I think he's growing in stature within this squad as well, which you could see. But I feel like he put in a really good display.
Yeah, I thought he was only on the pitch 15 minutes, but I thought he was having a really strong display, Cuti Romero. Unfortunately, he had the clash of heads, and that was unfortunate. But I think that Romero look. He was good for 15 minutes, and it's just a shame he didn't last any longer. What can we say? But I thought he was actually being front-footed, being aggressive, as he usually does. He was setting us on attacks, and a really nice header for...
bullet header.
Yeah, really nice header for the goal. So
and let's just hope the concussion rules don't keep him out for the Man United game, because we could be in a bit of trouble if that happens. Moving on to Destiny Udogie. Sim gives him an 8. I gave him a 7. I thought Udogie, again, just took to the Premier League like a duck to water. Pretty much carried on his pre-season form in this game. Defensively, I thought he was spot on. Going forward, I did expect a bit more from him, but all in all, for a first game in the Premier League, I thought it was really good.
No, I think he was really solid. I thought down the left-hand side, he was the one more likely to get to the byline and create something than Son was. I thought defensively, he dealt with Mbeumo really, really well. Mbeumo, I know he scored from the penalty spot, but apart from that, he didn't really do too much on Udogie's side. So I think he was a really promising display from him, and I think it showed a bit of maturity not to just abandon his defensive responsibilities. I thought he did a really good job with that. And I think in the middle, I thought he saw a lot of the ball, Udogie, especially in the central areas, and he was like looking forward, trying to make things happen. It was and I think he was really, really good. I think it was a bit better than Emerson, so I gave him a 1 mark better.
All right, let's move on to the man of the match, which was Yves Bissouma. 9s all round. I mean, the stats just say everything you want to know for Bissouma, to be honest. First in pretty much all the metrics that you want to take. He was combative, he was aggressive, they couldn't get the ball off him, he was driving into space forward as well, he was making good forward passes, and they just couldn't get the ball off him, and he got the ball off his counterparts every single time. So I think if this performance is anything to go by, Bissouma is going to be an absolute star in the Premier League this season.
Yeah, I thought he was outstanding. Man of the match again, off the back of another man of the match performance in midweek against Barcelona. I thought Brentford, he was the real one in the centre where when he got the ball, Brentford were worried about him. He was just gliding past players. He was opening up spaces. He tried a couple of through balls as well, which he was a bit unlucky with for Richarlison, which didn't quite come off. But he was really the one who was taking responsibility on the pitch and just creating space for his teammates. I just thought he was absolutely sensational. Off the ball as well, defensively, apart from the goal, which maybe he didn't cover himself much glory. I think that he was fantastic. He was so strong. It was so hard to get past. And as well, when we're in the build-up play, he just gives this air of confidence and just comfort when you know you're passing it off to him, even when he's got players around him. And you know you've got that feeling when Dembele used to get it. He used to pass to Dembele, and you know even though he's got players around him, he's going to come away with it and create the space. And exactly that feeling you got with Bissouma now.
Yeah. Let's move on to Mickey van der Vertonghen. He was unbelievable yesterday, Van der Ven. 7s all round from us, and for a first game in the Premier League at that age, at centre-back, you can't really ask for much more, to be honest. I thought he looked confident, he looked calm, composed on the ball. He was driving into spaces into the defence. Defensively, he just looked absolutely rapid. He was mopping up a lot of things that were going the other way, and it was just such a confident display. I mean, I didn't feel at unease at all any time the ball came anywhere near him, and for a debut in the Premier League, for someone that's just come in from Germany, to put in a performance like that, I think it was sensational. Yes, the ball clipped him when it went in, but I'm not going to mark him down too much. I thought it was just an unfortunate deflection where, you know, if it didn't touch him, if you're probably not talking about a goal, and you're probably talking about 3 points. So I think that was unfortunate on the day, but you can't take away from what a great performance that was from him. Yeah,
barring a couple of dodgy moments, there was one in the second half, where he looped the ball away from him and he nearly gave away a penalty. That was true. A bit of a dodgy moment. Yeah. And then as well, for the Vicario nearly penalty, he kind of lost Schade, but I think Vicario, maybe if Vicario doesn't come streaming out, Van der Ven could potentially have dealt with that. But apart from those moments, I thought he was near faultless. I thought he was, as you say, echo your thoughts. I thought it was a breath of fresh air seeing him at left centre back, and that pace that he's got on that height is really going to be an asset we're going to use. And I think as a first performance, considering how little he's been at the club, was absolutely fantastic. So it was a really, really exciting and encouraging display.
He looks like an absolute unit as well. Like, I didn't realise how hench he seems to be. Like, I knew he was like tall, but I thought he was more like skinny, tall and lanky, and he needed to like grow into himself a bit more. But he is an absolute unit, and he's going to be a star for us. He really is. I can tell already after one game. But let's move on to Ollie Skip. Sim gives him a 5. I gave him a 6. I mean, it was the usual combative Ollie Skip. Never stop running performance in the middle of the park, but when he's ever asked to get on the ball or do anything yesterday, I thought he was more or less left wanting and didn't really contribute to anything going forward yesterday.
Yeah, I'm a big Skip. I've been a big Skip advocate, and I've always been backing him, but I have to say I was very disappointed with his display yesterday. I didn't think that the 8 position really suited him at all. I felt like when he got on the ball, he was giving it away way too cheaply and wasn't able to play quick, incisive passes like maybe his midfield teammates were able to, and even some of the inverted fullbacks as well. So that was a bit annoying. I thought off the ball, Skippy always going to give a shift. He's always going to be not a liability in that aspect, and I think he was that yesterday. But I need to see, if he's going to be able to play that 8 position, I just need to see more on the ball from him. He can't be getting caught in poor areas like he was, and then when we get into the final third, he needs to be showing more quality, and that just wasn't on show yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, does he keep his spot for the Man United game, do you reckon?
I would like to say no, but maybe Ange will think, just having that stability in the centre will be a good thing, but I think Sarr will probably get that role, but we'll see.
Next up, James Maddison, 8s all round from us. Unbelievable debut from him. 2 assists on the day, albeit that the assist from Emerson was kind of not really an assist, but I think the assist for the first goal was an unbelievable cross, right on the money for Christian Romero. Really hard cross, by the way, and Romero just batted it in, but all you have to do as well is look at the metrics for Maddison yesterday. The amount of key passes he made, I think it was key passes, 2 assists. He was playing with absolute authority. Captain's armband on his debut as well, which I've never seen a Spurs player do that. But I think he just showed everything that we've been missing over the last couple of years without Christian Eriksen on that football pitch. And again, he's going to be an absolute star for us. It's hard to get the ball off him as well. And he's just got such supreme ability on the ball. It's going to stand us in such good stead.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal debut, and he's a phenomenal player, and I can't wait for him to start laying on more and more assists, and more importantly get more goals, which unfortunately he wasn't able to do on his debut. But the chance creation was absolutely fantastic. It wasn't just the 2 assists, he was creating chances for Richarlison, for Son, and he was really buzzing around the penalty area, and he was causing real problems for Brentford. Even the free kick that he got the assist for Romero, he won it himself with some good dribbling ability. That's something that's underrated as well, his ability to wriggle out of tight situations, and when you look like he's going to get beaten, he can pull out a turn or a shift, and that's exactly what he showed yesterday. He also showed that leadership and responsibility with that captain's armband as well. I thought he really led the team very, very well, and it was a really, really good debut, and I was really happy with him, and I think he's only going to get better. I think as the season goes on, he's going to get so many goal contributions with the way we play.
Does need to watch himself a little bit though, because he was putting in a lot of aggressive challenges yesterday, and on another day he could have easily got sent off, in my opinion.
Yeah, he was a bit lucky with that, but I'm sure he'll learn from it.
Yeah. Next up, Heung-min Son. Sim gives him a 4. I gave him a 5. He gets a point just for leading the team over before the game to get the fans riled up, in my opinion. But I think he did show that responsibility, but he didn't get into the game anywhere near enough that I would have liked. He was kind of like wasted out there on the left wing. Whenever he got the ball, he wasn't really taking on his man, didn't influence the game enough, in my opinion. He had one chance at the back post where he kind of like snatched at the shot and it just went over and wide, but it was a very hard shot. It would have been a wonder goal if he did get it in anyway. But I would like to see Son maybe interchange with Richarlison a bit more. I felt like there was a couple of moments on the edge of the box where Son probably could have pulled the trigger, but he went for the passes instead, and we kind of like tried to walk it in. But hopefully Son will get better in this system.
Yeah, it is a bit of a shame. He did seem a bit ineffective, to be honest, which was frustrating. I thought on the left-hand side he was seeing quite a bit of the ball, but wasn't really able to affect the game enough. He kind of faked to run down the line, and then more often than not he'll check back and look for an option inside. And when we played like the way we did yesterday against a team who are very congested in the centre, we need our wide players to be getting a lot more joy out wide, and Son wasn't able to do that. Yeah, he had that one chance in the volley. He also had another chance in the second half which fell to him, which was a bit of a weak effort, went for the near post, and it was saved by Flecken. That was a good chance. He probably could have done better with that, but apart from that, didn't really threaten. There was also one moment where Emerson danced into the penalty area, he squared it to Son, and he could have kind of got it under control and taken a shot or tried to pass it to free Maddison, and unfortunately did neither and kind of lost the ball to the defender. That was a bit frustrating as well. It needs to be better from him if he's going to be effective in this system. Look, when I started seeing how ANGE is going to play with the wingers, I did question whether Son is suitable at this stage of his career for that kind of role, and I think the jury is still out on that at the moment.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I kind of get the feeling about this next player as well, Dejan Kulusevski. Sim gives him a 6. I gave him a 5. I got really frustrated with Kulusevski yesterday. In the first half, I thought he put in a bit of a similar performance to Heung-min Son, where he wasn't really in the game. But second half, I thought he saw a lot of the ball and he started taking on his man, but it was just so frustrating with what happened after he kind of did that, where his passing seemed to be a bit off, wasn't taking on his shots. A bit like Sonny, there were a couple of opportunities where he could have pulled the trigger, but he went for the pass and tried to walk it into the opposition's box again. But I think Kulusevski, for me, that performance was pretty much what we saw from him last season or in the last stage of last season.
I thought he was a bit better than Son. I thought he was, especially in this. I thought first half Rico Henry had won that duel hands down, and I think that was very important for how Brentford were going to nullify us, is winning those wide area duels. And I think Rico Henry wasn't having any of it from Kulusevski. But I did think that changed in the second half. I think he was getting more joy. He started to get to the byline a bit more, a couple of pullbacks. He did it was his shot that led to that Son opportunity, which Son probably should have done better with. And I think he was growing in influence as the game went on. Unfortunately, didn't create maybe the chances that someone like Kulusevski should be creating with his quality. But I did feel like Kulusevski improved as the game went on, but still want more from him.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's move on to Richarlison, our Brazilian number 9. Sim gives him a 4. I gave him a 5. Look, he was non-stop running throughout the game. He was pressing and he was showing that energy that we all know from Richarlison, but he did take the least amount of touches out of anyone on that football pitch yesterday. And I think that's kind of expected, to be honest, in an Ange Postecoglou system from your number 9. But I think when the chances did come his way, he should have done better with them. He should have got himself more involved in the game. But he was kind of feeding off scraps pretty much the whole game.
Yeah, it was a difficult day for him. It was always going to be a difficult game, but he did kind of lack any sort of impact, to be honest. He had those couple of chances in the second half, which maybe if he takes one of them, you're talking about a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 with that kind of work rate he offers. But unfortunately, wasn't to be. The chances went begging, and apart from those opportunities, it was very difficult for him to get in the game. When he was asked to hold the ball up, he struggled really badly to do so. His first touch still needs so much improvement. When he came deep to try and impact the game, he wasn't really doing him any favours because of his lack of build-up play. So another frustrating day for Richarlison, unfortunately.
Do you believe he could do this role?
Yeah, I do. I think yesterday, specifically in that game, was going to be a more difficult game than usual. I really believe when we play teams who are going to be a bit more open or who aren't playing through at the back, I do think he's going to be making more of an impact. But I think yesterday was always going to be a difficult day for him, in my opinion.
Let's move on to the substitute, starting off with Davinson Sanchez, who came on after 12-13 minutes for the concussed Cuti Romero. Sim gives him a 6. I gave him a 7. And I was happy with Davinson Sanchez yesterday, to be honest. I thought he defended really well. He didn't put in as strong of a display as he did in the pre-season against Barcelona, but he did put a couple of those challenges in, those long bursting challenges, and I was really happy for his defensive display first and foremost. On the ball, you're always going to have those problems with him, to be honest, but I think his display on the ball was nowhere near as bad as maybe what we're accustomed to seeing from Davinson Sanchez, and he did keep the ball moving at certain times, but he's never going to give you those kind of dinks into the midfield and those long range passes that sometimes Cuti Romero can give you. So I think all in all, for the attributes that he does have, I think he put in a good display.
I thought he was decent. I was a bit look, he was all right. I thought defensively really strong, and I think we know he's a very good defender. He's a strong, fast defender, and I think a few times he had to make some really important blocks and some important aggressive challenges when need be, and I think he did step up for the team. I was just a bit frustrated with his on-the-ball quality yet again. He got booked for a really poor first touch, which he was end up stretching and sliding to recover and ended up getting booked for it. I think a number of times as well. One thing I like about Romero is when he steps up and is aggressive, he doesn't just win the ball. What he'll do is he'll aggressively win an interception, but get the ball to a teammate at the same time. And I think Sanchez struggled with that second part. He would be aggressive and win the ball, but his kind of aggressive tackle won't land to a teammate. It would always consistently land to an opposition player, and I found that to be the case quite a few times yesterday. So I was a bit frustrated with that. His long range passing wasn't very good. I think when he had to keep things simple, when he had options near him, he was fine doing that. But I think when you have to make the difference to try and win the game, I just felt his passing, his on the ball quality just wasn't enough.
That's fair enough. But I mean, as an actual defender and his defensive work, I thought it was pretty good yesterday.
No, that's fine. But I just think in Ange's system, we need more than that.
Yeah,
that's the reality.
Yeah, I accept that. Moving on to Ivan Perisic. Sim gives him a 6. I gave him a 5. I was actually calling for Perisic and maybe Porro as well to come on the right. But Perisic disappointed me yesterday, to be honest. I thought he did see the ball a number of times on that left-hand side, and I was expecting good deliveries to come in the box, but I think his delivery was nowhere near as what we've been seeing in pre-season for him. He didn't influence the game anywhere near as much as he has been doing in pre-season as well. There was one time where he did a few step-overs and got round the back, but that was few and far between.
I think he showed more in 15 minutes than Son did for the whole game, to be honest, in my opinion. And that's it's not saying much, but I thought it was I'm not saying he came on and did brilliantly, but he did come on and beat his man a couple of times, get a few crosses in the box. It's always going to be difficult to find a teammate when Brentford are flooding the box like they were, but I think he made a bit of an impact when he did come on with his dribbling ability. But as well, there was a couple of occasions where he dribbled inside and wasted it and gave it away frustratingly, and so that was a bit annoying. But I did think when he was isolating his fullback and one-on-one 1-on-1, he looked a lot more dangerous than Son did.
He just seemed to lose possession time and time again when he came on, and it was just really frustrating because we were pushing really hard in those final 10-15 minutes, and you really thought like you'd find some quality from Ivan Perisic, and that just didn't come, to be honest. Let's move on to the last substitute, which was Pape Matar Sarr. 6s all round from us, and I thought, there was not much in there from Sarr, but what he did do, I thought he kept it simple. He showed a lot of energy, and it was a competent display. And I think that, not judging on this performance alone, but when you're judging on maybe what we've seen so far from both these players, I think Sarr is probably more suited to this system than Ollie Skip is at the moment.
Yeah, I think he wasn't too involved when he came on. I think he was all right. I don't think he did anything wrong, but he didn't do anything special as well to try and impact the game. I did think it was actually the wrong decision to bring him on. I think at the time, we were penning Brentford in at the time. We just needed a bit of guile and a bit more creativity, and I think Lo Celso was probably the best choice, in my opinion. But he went with Sarr, I guess, just to make sure that we didn't lose the game, and also, he's got a bit more quality maybe on the ball than Skip. So I'm not mad at the decision, but I didn't think he impacted the game that much when he came on.
And last but not least, let's go to our brand new manager, Mr. ANGE Postecoglou. Great reception from the fans for him yesterday. It was a proper Tottenham welcome for Ange Postecoglou. The fans definitely made him feel welcome. He said it after the game how brilliant the fans were, but we are giving him 7s all round. It wasn't a perfect display. It wasn't an unbelievable display by any stretch of the imagination, but when we've been playing a certain brand of football for so long now, for him to come in, implement brand new players to the league, implement debutants. I mean, we had 3 players in the back line alone with Vicario, Udogie and Van de Ven, who'd never kicked the ball in the Premier League before. So that was always going to be a bit dodgy. And you had players like Maddison, who was making his debut as well. So for all this, and to put it all together in one game, in a really tough away game at Brentford, which only Arsenal out of the top 6 won last year, I think it was a really good starting block. We showed attacking intent. We were penning them in for a lot of the game. We were dominating the ball for a lot of the game, which we haven't seen Spurs do in a long time. So I think in terms of a building block, it was a really good starting point to start off with. I think a lot of teething problems in the first game, but you can definitely see what Ange is trying to do, and I think we're only going to get better. And I think he's instilled something in that team, like maybe a bit of a togetherness in that team already. He's instilled maybe a starting point to make that connection between the fans and the players again. So I think it was a really good starting point for his first game.
Yeah, I think if we're marking him on like trying to instill a style of play and building the rapport for the fans and kind of heading the rebuild, I think it'll be a higher mark. If we're just basing it solely on how we played on Sunday, this is why I gave him a 7 out of 10. I didn't think it was an overly impressive display overall. It was really good to see the amount of possession we have and the passing and the fluidity that we threatened to have at times throughout the game. I thought defensively in the first half, look, it was a bit of a mess, to be honest, and a number of times Brentford were catching us out, but we did get our act together in the second half and really prevented those counter-attacks. I think he'll be a bit frustrated, and I think he said after the game, he was asked by, I think it was an Australian reporter, he was like, you had 18 shots, are you really happy with like how much your team created? He was like, no, I don't think we created enough. I think we need to add that final kind of pass in the final third to be a bit more clinical and add a bit more quality. So I'm really happy for him to acknowledge that even though we had all this possession, it's not just about possession sake. You need to be creating good quality chances, and we didn't do enough of that yesterday. But I think that will come. The more time these players have together and the way Ange wants to play, I'm sure those chances will start to flow. And I think as a starting block, as the first game of the season under a new project with all the problems that he's had, I think it was a really encouraging display, and I was very, very happy with the style of play we're playing. And I just think there's way, way more to come. I think we've scratched the surface of what this team is capable of under Ange. Yeah,
and you got to remember as well all the problems that he's had to deal with already since joining Tottenham Hotspur, with the pre-season madness, with the Harry Kane sale. I mean, for Harry Kane to leave this club is such a gargantuan thing. Like, he's been so central to everything that we've been doing for so many years now, and to lose a player like that And look, it affected us in a way where we weren't creating too much yesterday, weren't creating too many clear-cut chances. But to come away with a draw and put in a positive display, you got to give him credit for that. So big up to Ange Postecoglou. I think he's going to be a good manager here, and I think that we're going to see a lot of good things under Ange Postecoglou as it progresses throughout the season. Next up is Manchester United, so a very tough game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for his opening. But that is our player rating, so let us know your thoughts on the players in the comment section below, and we'll move on to the 5 takeaways. So we'll get him on later. But let's start off with the 5 takeaways, starting off with number 1, and that is bossing Bissouma.
Yeah, where else to start but Yves Bissouma? What a performance he had on the first Premier League game of the season. We know that he hasn't really lived up to the heights that we expected throughout last season. After he came with a lot of expectation, a lot of excitement after we signed him for 25 million. But I think now we're starting to see the Bissouma that we signed for Brighton. Now we're starting to see the real Bissouma. And I thought he literally put in a near perfect display for that number 6 position in the first game of the season. The stats speak for itself. 5 out of 6 dribbles completed, 138 touches, which is more than any other player. Apparently, not only more than any other player on the pitch, but more than any other player on the Premier League the whole weekend.
Wow.
So, which is impressive. 1 key pass, which might have been more if Richarlison, might have gone to the end of one of his through balls. 9 out of 12 ground duels won, 3 tackles, 4 interceptions, 92% pass accuracy, 22 out of 26 line-breaking passes completed as well. It seemed to be just an all-round fantastic performance from Yves Bissouma. There's not much I can criticise him on throughout the game, and if he's going to be playing like that, I really believe we always believed that he could potentially be one of the best defensive mids in the Premier League. He showed that at Brighton, especially outside the top 6. But I really believe if he's performing like this, he's up there with the best in the Premier League.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's not just what he does as a defensive midfielder as well. It's all the facets he needs to be a number 6 in an Ange Postecoglou system. Because a number 6 in a Postecoglou system is a very specialised position where you need to be on point defensively, and you need to have that nous about you to wriggle around players and pick out the passes. And I think he did everything to a high level yesterday. I think there is still more to come as well, and I think he's going to get better in that role. But as your first game in a competitive game under Ange, and the pre-season he showed, he even got better from the pre-season where we were waxing lyrical about him. So massive performance from Bissouma, and we're finally starting to see that player that we signed from Brighton. But let's move on to number 2, and that is Ange ball taking effect.
Yeah, and I've got some numbers here to really exemplify the difference this season, and even just in the first game to what we saw last season. So in terms of touches in the attacking third, we had 344, as you mentioned before, which is more than any other game we had last season. Shows how much we're attacking more. Touches inside the penalty area, 32. Only 3 games last season did we have more. Tackles in the attacking third, we had 5, which only 3 times last season did we have more. Possession, 70%, more than any other game last season. Passes on the pitch, 655. The highest last season was 594, so nearly 60 passes more than any game last season. Passes in the final third, 72. 55 was the most we had in any game last season, already beaten that this season. And this is an interesting one as well. Touches in our own defensive third, 151, and only 2 games last season did we have less. Wow. So we're really clearly going to be a lot more front-footed team. He's already it's going to be we were thinking, because we're playing a different type of ball for so long, it's going to take a while for this team to adjust to what Postecoglou wants and how he wants to play this new attacking brand of football, possession-based as well. And that's the important thing, possession-based, because a lot of people hark back to like Pochettino and wanting that style of football again and thinking that's where it's headed. But Pochettino was very different to what Postecoglou's doing. Pochettino was much more about forcing mistakes from the opposition, playing that high press. Postecoglou is going to be a lot more possession-based, having the ball in and around the final third, looking to pick that lock a lot more often. And I think those stats pretty much tell its own story of what a difference is going to be from last season.
Having said that, though, I did see, Spurs a lot trying to press from the front and force some mistakes out of the opposition as well. And I
didn't think we did it well.
No, we didn't do it well, but it will get better. And I think a Postecoglou team does do that. In terms of trying to force mistakes out of the opposition. I mean, look at pre-season alone. How many times did we win the ball really high up the pitch when other teams are trying to play out of the back?
My point is, yes, he's going to try and do that, but that's not that was the main kind of strategical advantage under Pochettino was that high press and trying to win the ball back very high up, and that was like the main thing. I didn't even think in possession we were that brilliant a team. It was more about how we were hunting like wolves and hounding teams. But under Postecoglou, his main advantage and strategical advantage is his possession and his interchanges, and that's the big difference. And I think that is what we're going to start to see.
I think it was definitely, I keep saying it, but definitely a good starting block for Ange Postecoglou. You're definitely seeing what he's trying to do. I would like to see, I think, look, you definitely saw teething problems in the way we were attacking yesterday, the way we couldn't create too many clear-cut opportunities. But I think if we keep going with this and we keep believing in Ange methods, we'll see a really good team starts to flourish under him. So I'm very happy with him as our manager. And also, like, the way he conducts himself, the way he talks in the press, the way he handled that Harry Kane situation as well. I mean, everything he's done to perfection so far. So I can't knock him whatsoever. Moving on to number 3, and that is classy Maddison.
Yeah, and it was a really nice debut from James Maddison. We all know that he's been one of the best attacking mids in the Premier League under Leicester, but it's really nice to see him translate his performances so quickly at Spurs, and I thought it was a really, really good opening game for him. 6 key passes. He drew 2 fouls throughout the game. 89% passing accuracy for an attacking midfielder is pretty impressive when, you know, you're probably trying things and he's doing through balls and things like that. It's still quite high passing accuracy. Did 1 tackle, won 3 of his 9 ground duels, and he did complete 2 assists as well. And I thought he was just a breath of fresh air in and around the penalty area. It was a buzzing around. It was really hard for Brentford to deal with when he was picking up the ball in really awkward areas for them. And I think he's only going to grow in influence, I believe, throughout the season. And I thought it was a really encouraging first display from Maddison.
Yeah, completely. 2 assists on the day, 6 key passes made on the day. He really took up the mantle that Christian Eriksen left 2 years ago, whenever it was. And he took responsibility on that football pitch to come in and be vice captain straight off the bat is a big thing, in my opinion. It shows how much the manager believes in him and shows how much authority he has in that dressing room. And you're starting to see that on the pitch. As soon as he put on that captain's armband, he kind of calmed down and really started to show those leadership qualities that Ange sees in him. And I think he was doing great things off the ball, on the ball. Obviously, he's always going to get commended for the work he does on the ball, but I think off the ball as well yesterday, he was putting himself about and really influencing the game in a positive way. So 2 assists on your debut, you can't really knock it, can you? So big up to James Maddison, really good performance from you. And let's move on to number 4, and that is defensive debuts.
Yeah, and it's hard to it's easy to forget that even though we had some defensive troubles yesterday, we actually had 3 debutants in the back line yesterday. So they're going to take some time to gel. But you're talking about Vicario, Udogie, and Van de Ven. If you look at Udogie's stats individually, 5 out of 10 ground duels won, 1 key pass, 3 tackles, 3 interceptions. He was dribbled past 0 times, and he had a 94% passing accuracy. Van de Ven had completed 2 out of 2 dribbles. He won 5 out of 5 ground duels. He won 4 out of 5 aerial duels. He completed 2 tackles, 5 clearances, and also 92% passing accuracy. And Vicario, overall 4 saves. He successfully had 3 out of 4 runs out of his penalty area. He claimed he had 2 out of 2 aerial claims, but his passing actually definitely does need a bit of work. He only completed 3 out of 12 long passes and 63% passing accuracy
Vicario?
Overall. Yeah, so does definitely some work for improvement. But I think overall, as considering it was their debuts together and as a defensive unit, individually, I think they all did like a fairly decent job. There's clearly room for improvement and a lot of work to do to get to the level we want it to be. But I thought it was a really encouraging start. And, you know, considering 3 debutants in the back line, I know at the first half it was a bit of a mess, but I'm happy that second half they did seem to get it together and improve.
Yeah, me and I was walking towards the stadium before the lineups came out yesterday with Nathan, who you saw on the instant match reaction yesterday, and we were both saying, like, it's going to be very difficult to play Udogie, Van de Ven and Vicario all together in the first game. Not only because it's their first game in the Premier League, but also you're playing at a very tough away ground in Brentford, where not many big teams are going to go and win. So I think for him to implement those three players, Ange, and for them all to work, I think Vicario was the biggest worry out of the three. But I think Van de Ven and Udogie literally just took to it like a duck to water. That Udogie showed what he's been doing in pre-season all along. Van de Ven with only 3 training sessions behind him with the team, and to have his partner wiped out after 13 minutes, I think he showed such maturity, such calm, cool composure on the ball as well, and his rapid pace to make his recovery runs. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Vicario did worry me a bit at times with his playing out the back, but hopefully he will only get better as he acclimatises to the way Ange Postecoglou likes to play. So I think when you're looking at those defensive debutants, you can only have positive words to say, really.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the fifth and final takeaway, and that is the winger worries.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Son and Kulusevski were tasked yesterday with creating opportunities from the wide areas, beating players, opening up space for the other attackers, and that was going to be the key, I think, to whether we were going to create really good quality chances consistently or not. And unfortunately, they weren't really up to the task for the level that we expect and that we need to be at in games like this. They only attempted 3 dribbles between them, albeit they did complete 2 of them, and there was only 1 key pass between them throughout the whole 90 minutes. I think that's the key one, the key passes, because that's where you're making passes that leading to shots. That includes crosses and through balls and passes in the penalty area that lead to opportunities. And only 1 key pass from your wingers who you're tasking to create opportunities is just nowhere near good enough. It was Kulusevski who made that key pass, but it's unfortunately we need more from our wingers consistently if we're going to be a lot more of a dangerous team, especially in the final third. And I think that kind of let us down a bit yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was really frustrated standing in the stands watching them, to be honest, because I thought everyone was doing their roles really well up until the wingers, pretty much, to be honest. And like I said before in the match review, I felt like there were a lot of times where Son and Kulusevski actually did come centrally, and they were on the edge of the box, but it was just one too many passing, and they were just trying to. It was like the old Arsenal team under Arsene Wenger, where they just wanted to pass it into the net every single time. And I felt like with the quality that these players have, including Maddison, why not just take a pop shot from 25 yards and test the keeper and see what they're about? Because we know that they can score goals consistently from far, especially Heung-min Son. I mean, his finishing from outside the box is second to none to anyone in the Premier League, maybe except for De Bruyne. So I think that he needs to start taking more shots. And I think maybe if these players would have taken shots from far and would have got a goal or 2 and we go away with the 3 points, no one's really talking about what poor performance they're having. So it's these maybe moments that can really change people's opinions on how they're playing on the game. But Son didn't get involved in the game anywhere near enough, and Kulusevski, he got involved in the second half, but he was just frustrating with his quality on the ball after he would take it past his man. I mean, his passing was a bit off, and crossing wasn't anything to be desired about. So they need to maybe adjust a bit more to the Ange system, and I think Sonny and Richarlison, I'd really like to see them interchange a lot more on that pitch, but that's down to Ange to implement that. So I think they just need to improve at the end of the day.
Yeah, and let's hope so. I'm just worried about Son, because I think Kulusevski, it is more his game to be more of a creator on the right hand side, but I just don't know if it at 31. I think Son maybe at 25 could have done this role a lot more effectively, but at 31, in how the game has adapted over the years, I just worry that this is his game.
Yeah. To be honest, though, we didn't touch on it on Ange before in the player ratings, but I did like that he was able to take off Heung-min Son, the player he just named captain. I thought it was a really good move from Ange, to be honest, because if a player's not playing well, you should be able to be substituted. If a player's not playing well, you should be able to not start them in the next game as well. And for a player of the stature in the squad like Heung-min Son, we saw it time and time again. Like last season, for example, Son was awful throughout the whole season. He had playing with an injury throughout the whole season, but Conte just kept playing him. So I like the way that Ange Postecoglou is able to take these guys off.
100% completely agree with that.
All right, well, there you have it. That is our 5 takeaways from the game against Brentford 2-2. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. But just before we go, we got a couple of super chats to read through today. First from V, saying the new keeper looks shaky and not confident. I think he did look shaky at times, to be honest, especially when he was playing out the back. But would you say he didn't look confident as well?
Occasionally, there was a couple of occasions where he came rushing out of his goal and then hesitated and ran back. Even though I actually think it was probably the right decision to run back in the end because he probably wasn't going to make it. But it just added an air of kind of nervousness throughout the game. I think, and also there are a couple of times, he had a occasion where he had the ball at his feet and Wissa blocked his pass and he kind of went out for a goal kick. Another time as well, he was being challenged by the Brentford attack and he ended up passing out for a throw. So there definitely were those occasions where he was a bit nervous. So I think you have to agree with that.
Welcome to Silver, to David Shire. Welcome, my friend. And I just want to let you know, we do post-match fan shows after every game where you have to be a gold member to get involved. So if you do want to join the We Are Tottenham army, the link is in the description. And another super chat, and the last super chat from Flegnut19 saying, do you think Troy Parrott could become the next Kane? Does he have that potential in him, or will we have to look to the transfer market? Well, first and foremost, I don't think anyone can become the next Kane. Let's just put that out there, because Kane was a very special player. To become your lead goal scorer of all time, to beat that record for Jimmy Greaves, and it's not just that, it's just what he could do on a football pitch, the passing of De Bruyne, the finishing of Harry Kane, because he's just the best finisher in the world. But I don't think anyone can become the next Harry Kane. It's just about finding ways to cope without Harry Kane. But can Troy Parrott become a leading player in this team? I have my doubts at the moment.
It's hard to say. You probably would have said the same thing, before Kane got his opportunity. Wouldn't
Absolutely.
You? So it is hard to say. But look, he hasn't shown anything really in his loan spells to suggest that he's going to be a starter for Tottenham anytime soon.
Neither did Kane.
Albeit Troy does play at international level. When he plays for Ireland, he seems all right. But you're right, neither did Kane. He never really showed much before he got his opportunities. Sometimes you just need something to fall in on your lap. But at the end of the day, Sherwood saw something in Kane and decided to give him the opportunity. And it's up to Troy to show in training what he's about to show Ange, that he deserves the opportunity. And when he gets there, he has to grab it with both hands. I do have my doubts. In a way, I feel like in terms of how he plays, he actually could be quite good in this system, like with his finishing ability and his close control in the penalty area. But it's about the physicality of the Premier League, whether he's up to those kind of things. It's difficult to say at the moment. Do you not think Dane Scarlett is more suited to a 9 in a Postecoglou system than Troy Parrott? Probably. I think Scarlett seems to be developing physically a lot quicker than Troy. So from that point of view, yes. I think in terms of hold-up play and like general play, I think Parrott actually might be ahead at the moment. From what I understand, like Parrott has played in the number 10 a few times with Preston.
Out wing as well.
Out wing, so he seems to have a bit more build-up play. Not as much of a penalty box striker as Scarlett. But I think Scarlett probably would be more suited. I think he's got a bit more pace, a bit more physicality about him.
And I think he's a better finisher as well, to be honest. But look, that is that for our post-match stream. You got all in one today, so we'll stagger them out throughout the day, as well as transfer updates and Tottenham updates to come your way. But thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll see you all very soon. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.